literally spending 1,000 pieces of gold to buy a bone. This idiom means being so eager for capable people that one offers great rewards to recruit them. Idiomatically, it expresses the willingness to pay handsomely for talent or integrity, valuing rare ability or moral character enough to spare no expense to secure it. It emphasizes urgency and high regard for genuine talent or principled character, often implying that true worth, the bone, cannot be created cheaply and is worth exceptional investment. You might use it to praise an employer who offers a generous package to attract a brilliant specialist, or to describe someone who recognizes and rewards rare moral courage. When Alex opened the studio door at 9 on a rainy Tuesday, the city was still rubbing sleep from its eyes. The office smelled like coffee and the faintly sweet tang of new software builds. Alex had built the company from a single desk in a co-working loft into a small team of designers and engineers who liked to argue about typefaces at 3 in the morning. Growth had been patient, accidental, a series of little bets that paid off. Now a larger prize had arrived, a contract that would require a different kind of mind. Someone who could see structure where everyone else saw noise. There were 50 resumes. There were 3 that mattered. And then, inexplicably, there was one person who felt as if some previous life had been skipped, someone whose portfolio read like the blueprints of good judgment rather than just clever tricks. Mara's work didn't just solve problems, Mara. It anticipated the questions people didn't yet know to ask. Alex felt it like heat under the skin, a recognition that this talent wasn't merely useful. It was rare. The offer Alex drafted balanced on a thin edge between practicality and generosity. There was more money than the budget predicted. There were options, titles, a promise of creative freedom. Friends raised eyebrows. You're paying too much. Competitors would call it reckless if they knew. But Alex could not shake a deeper conviction. If the company was to change shape, they needed a strong backbone of judgment. You could hire bodies for a dozen things. You could not buy the quiet calibration of someone who carried a moral compass inside their workflow. Mara's first weeks were mercifully ordinary and unsettling. She asked small questions that unspooled the team's assumptions. Whose needs were we serving when we built that feature? Which user did we forget as we chased scale? She did not grandstand. She left notes in code, sketched interfaces on napkins, and came to the whiteboard with metaphors that smelled of the everyday. People began to slow down. Meetings shortened. Teams started leaving space to name the unseen costs of their choices. Money was a door opener. The deeper thing, what Alex had hoped to buy with generosity, was respect for time, for craft, for the way work shapes people. Mara responded to the financial offer not as an end, but as a measure. She accepted because it allowed her to refuse projects that would compromise her standards. She stayed because Alex kept asking questions she thought mattered. That was the crucial reciprocation. Investment invited stewardship. A handful of months later, the contract came due. Under pressure. The old habit would have been to quicken, to patch faster, to tune the visible metrics. Instead, the team paused. They rewrote a module not because anyone would notice, but because they had a shared sense that the product should embody how people ought to be treated: transparent, simple, humane. They refused an extra client who wanted a cheaper, darker iteration. They lost short-term revenue, and their work gained a steadier pulse. Alex learned an unexpected lesson. Paying extravagantly for talent had an ethical consequence. It forced the company to be honest with itself. When you prize someone highly, you also give them leverage to demand better processes, better intentions, better respect for users and colleagues. That leverage is not a cost. It is a test of what kind of organization you want to be. Outside the office, life kept its small demands. Mara biked past a mural of a laughing whale, and the mail carrier at the corner knew her name. Her impact was not dramatic. It was accumulative. A designer who felt seen began mentoring a junior colleague who, in turn, made a small switch to a layout that helped a visually impaired user navigate the site. The client who had been turned away found another vendor. They returned 3 months later. Not because they had changed, but because reputation has its own gravity. One evening, Alex stood at the window watching the city lights come alive. He thought about the idiom he had read in a book of Proverbs years ago, the idea of paying 1,000 pieces of gold to secure a single bone. He understood now that the bone was not a commodity, it was a hinge. Talent of a certain kind shifts what's possible. Paying for it is not the same as owning it. The generosity he had shown had not bought obedience or overnight miracles. It had bought the right to be challenged, to be improved, and to join in a shared ambition that mattered beyond quarterly reports. In time, the company was known less for its rapid growth and more for how carefully it grew. Prospective hires asked, not about compensation alone, but about the integrity of the work and whether their voice would matter. Alex noticed the culture of carefulness spreading, fewer rushed decisions, more conversations about how a product affected a user's day. Money had been the catalyst, but the result was something subtler, an environment where excellence could be nurtured rather than extracted. One morning, a junior developer sent an email with a small, humble line, "You paid for a place where I could learn to care." Alex printed it, put it on the fridge, and smiled. The story did not peak in a single triumph, nor did it end in tragedy. It became a ledger of small, ethical choices and persistent attention. In a city that often measured success in immediacy, they had purchased a different currency, a community that learned to weigh value not by price alone, but by what generosity invited them to become.